been 117 days since leaving the U.S. It's been 83 days since quitting my full-time job. I've been working full-time since, I would say, about 2017. So it hasn't been that long. I didn't even make 10 years. I turned 31 a couple weeks ago, and I couldn't make a decade of working full-time. I don't know if it was just the era I was born in. I don't know if it was the presence of social media, the adaptability or the flexibility of being able to work remote or have passive income, or I was just born with the will not to work, not just until I'm older, but not to have a full-time job anymore. Or to commit to something long-term that has nothing to do with my, physical well-being, my family's well-being, my dreams, my goals, and peace. It could be all of the above, and then maybe it's just timing. Guys call it God's timing, premonition. But I just felt that I've reached not my peak, but I felt like I reached my point in being able to sustain a meaningful living in the United States of America. So when I left the States, I went to Jamaica. I'm currently in Thailand. In a couple weeks, I'll be checking out Vietnam before coming back to Thailand. So within a 5-month spread, I would have been in 3 different countries, not breaking the bank. It's been over 2 months, almost 3 months where I've deliberately not worked full time. And I haven't deliberately not worked full time in over 8 years. And I didn't want to wait till my kids get older. I didn't want to wait till I got older. I didn't want to wait for SSI. I didn't want to wait until I could sell my houses and the equity matured a little bit. I didn't want to wait until the IRA popped off and did all these things, because I will also be putting my health at risk. I would also be putting my relationships at risk. I would also be putting my finances at risk, because day-to-day life is so expensive in America. And simply exiting the country of the United States is adding, not will, but has added longevity to all of the above. I left 117 days ago, and I don't regret it. I don't regret paying a low cost of living. I don't regret losing weight. I don't regret meeting different people from different countries with a similar mindset that myself and my wife had in doing this move. I don't regret being near the water multiple times a week. I'm not one of those people where I gotta wait for something bad to happen for life to change. I would have left the States years ago, young 20s. I'm really always kind of in that gray area. I'm always in that middle line. I don't have to wait till something detrimental in my life happens to support a new chapter, to support change. But that's what many people do. They wait. They wait till they get laid off numerous amount of times. They wait till they don't get that raise. They wait, after trying 4, 5, 6 relationships. After they have kids, they wait till the kids leave the house. They wait till they figure out they can't retire in the U.S. They wait until they figure out their health is at risk. But I said to myself, and I said to my wife, I'm like, why wait? Why do the norm? Many people still reach those breaking points. They hit those midlife crises, and they don't get to achieve what they want. Simple stuff, right? Not being able to buy a home is a nice goal, is a very achievable goal in the in a very equitable market that the U.S. is no longer in. Like, that's an achievable goal for people who work full time and people who've been working for the last 5 to 10 plus years. All right, people who have meaningful work, people who make a decent income, you know, should be able to buy a home. A lot of this stuff isn't happening for people laying that foundation, people who've been doing it for 10, 20, 30, and 40 years. A lot of it has been happening, right? And I'm like, why wait? Why keep doing the same thing, When you just got to do, you got to make the sacrifice to be a little bit more consistent in getting your shit in order. That's building some sort of income passively. That's just running into some sort of money. That's putting away money, right? So that's sacrifice going out and that sacrifice getting that alcohol, that beer, that, those extra cars, right? Going on those extra trips that are almost meaningless, right? Like, because I think a lot of people forget the main point of working is to be able to sustain a life after work. I don't think the goal was to, when you're 15 or 20 or 25, if you go to college, was to work until you die. I don't think that was the goal. But things are changing in them, and the American economy is putting that stronghold on people to be government dependent, federally dependent, right? Work dependent on jobs, So it's really insane that it's been going on 4 months since I left the U.S. I knew I was always going to leave. I just didn't know when. And nothing was forced. I just saw the writing on the wall, and I'm like, this is time, I had a different outlook on how things were going to go. That didn't happen. I had plan A, B, C, D. I'm like, look, let's just go to plan F. People are waiting on motivation, inspiration, or like I said, that detrimental time to make that move. And this is even outside of leaving the U.S., just outside of traveling. This is just in doing stuff, man, And I talk to a lot of people here and back in the U.S., and I'm talking to them about the same struggles I escaped from. I don't have to be worried about a job laying me off and where my next is coming from. I had enough will to get something else together, right? I have enough will to get something else together, to make something work long enough for that to be the investment on the long-term goal. The goal is passive income. And everything don't happen overnight. Passive, it's not aggressive. It's not an overnight thing, but we want consistency, Being able to leverage credit and leverage working full-time, overtime, 60, 70, 80 hours a week sometimes, right? To be able to buy and afford a home, to be able to leverage those homes for rental income, for a nest egg in the savings. I wasn't over-consuming in America. I had one car. The other car was provided by work, or I was fully remote. That means one car insurance. When I got the second house, we rented out the first house. When I left America, we rented out the second house. Right? My experience allowed me to do bare minimum work each week for an extra source of income. I'm still playing an asset to a company that will never have to see me. Just doing the right things if you have a plan, if you got a focus. My goal was never to end my life in the States. My goal was never just to take 1 or 2 trips a year and come back and go to work and do that shit all over again. My goal was always to create something. My goal was always passive income. The goal was always peace, being healthy, right? Just living a little more serene, maybe ducked off life. I don't need or ever want to be in the spotlight for stuff. I don't need to be dressing the best. I have 5 or 6 outfits now. I think I have 8 to 10 in total. But unless I'm going out, which I have been in the last 4 months, I rotate the same 5 to 6 outfits. I'm living basic. I'm living healthy. I would have to go to work or get up for work at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And my days of working wouldn't end till 4, 5, 6 o'clock later in the day. I'm pushing evening every day with work. And that didn't make me rich. That didn't even put me in the well-off bracket. Working 12 to 15-hour days sometimes. And I'm like, man, I still got another 30 plus years to go of this. If I don't develop something on the side that I can take full time or get to a place where I have less bills, I'm going to be doing this for another 30 plus years. That didn't sit right with me over the last year thinking about that. So why would I do that? Why would I wait when I could do it now? And so those conversations get harder with people that I know or people that I come across. And it's like, it's a mental thing. Be mentally strong. I don't have all the answers. I wish I had more money, but I don't. I just want to change. And I'm not going to wait on anybody. I'm not going to wait on my mom, my dad, my sister, my in-laws, coaches, people in the church, neighbors, like none of these people, nobody to say this doesn't make sense, to just direct my life. I think getting advice, listening to other people's stories, right? You putting that foot down to kind of just gather information, right? Get your ducks in a row mentally to make that decision. But it's been hard for me to do that. I don't need to look at somebody else and be like, I don't know if this is the right time. It has to make sense for me. And I have a family, and it has to make sense for my family. And more or less, since I have a family, it made ultimate sense to not stay in the U.S. The government wants you to be stuck. It's just all this crap that happens, But you're still working the same. And I was telling my wife the other day that we're in a state now, around the world, but mostly in the U.S., inflation is going to always happen forever. But when you have so much bills, when your overhead is exceeding that 30, that 40, that 50, that 60% of your income, you losing your job next to somebody who has, their bills or their overhead at least at 10 or 15% of their income is not as detrimental. Bills don't stop. But income can if you're dependent on these publicly funded, government-funded jobs more so, right? These jobs where if something gets cut, that clientele get dropped. That means work gets dropped. That means payroll gets dropped and you get cut. That's what happened to Verizon. They laid off 15,000 people in the last week or so. Amazon is just doing quarterly layoffs. The UPS is just doing quarterly layoffs. There's millions of people who are getting laid off and not getting back in the position they were in. They have to take a pay cut. And some people, a lot of people, can't afford to take the pay cut because they built their life around a certain income. I want to be flexible in life. I don't want to be stuck. You got to think forward and you got to think ahead. You can't be caught up in what other people are doing. You can't be caught up in what other people have. Having is deception. Being is real. Having is deception and being is real. You gotta have options. You gotta be able to adapt. You gotta have plans. There has to be multiple streams of income, and there has to be a safety net of insurance and funds on you. That's where life has always been going, and for some people, including myself, it hit. And I'm hoping, and I'm trying to maneuver continually to make sure that I've done this at the right time going forward. It's always better late than never, but timing is everything, you know? Timing is everything. I couldn't wait another year. Earlier this year, I'm like, all right, let's do this in 2 years. And then we scrapped the plan and said, all right, let's do this in the next 5 to 6 months. Before this year, I'm like, all right, let's do this in the next 12 to 15 years when our kids get older. There is no way I would survive in America if I would have waited till I was 42, 43, 45 years old. There's no way. America is going to break down, especially for the African American out there who are usually just born at a deficit. We're born at zero or at owing. We don't have that leverage in credit. We don't have no trust fund. We don't have that 10 or 20K, 30K to put down on our first home, or 10 to 20K to buy out a car. And then we got all this past history with health, and how a lot of traces back to slavery and how that's tied into labor wage today. Like a lot of us are just indentured servants, right? We don't have a lot of people in our corner to be that example on what financial health looks like, on what relationship health looks like. Communities are dying in America, especially for the African American male. So I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm like, it was an easy decision. I left the States 117 days ago. Not only do I not regret it, I just wish I left earlier. But I continue to take every day in this beautiful earth to allow me to keep maneuvering, to allow me to spend more time with my son, spend more time with my daughter, right? Do life with my wife, and just mature in life, man. That's where I'm at. You guys can create your own future. Don't let anybody tell you you can't. It's beautiful in different places of the world. You don't have to be rich. You just got to be strategic. I hope this resonated with somebody.
Black been the new gold. Wonder if this bread come with peace. That's a new loaf. We up. That's a new float. They root now. Told them all to bury. It's a new glow. I kept it all a beam like we see gold. I thought that I was air, so I grew this little mustard seed. Counting on this one hand who believed. Man, they must have seen. Counting couple zeros. No one pitched in. This was all